Today, we're tackling Shakespearean love, but not the happily ever after kind.
We're going full tragedy.
Exactly. Think star-crossed lovers and epic downfalls. We've got Romeo and Juliet and Antony and Cleopatra.
To the greats.
For sure. But here's the big question. Why are these stories of doomed love so powerful, even centuries later? What is it about Shakespeare that just, I don't know, grabs us and won't let go?
It's fascinating, right? And the source material actually starts us off with something a little unexpected.
Okay, lay it on me.
It all begins with a dance, described as a skirmish betwixt reason and passion, from Sir Philip Sidney's Arcadia, no less.
Well, wait, hold up. A dance battle between logic and feelings?
Pretty much. A very Renaissance way to picture that internal struggle we all face. Head versus heart.
Makes sense.
And this whole idea was huge in the Renaissance. But the lecture points out that it's still something we grapple with today.
Totally. Who hasn't felt that pull between what you should do and what you want to do?
Exactly. And what's really cool is how Shakespeare explores this conflict in both Romeo and Juliet, Antony and Cleopatra, even though those couples are in totally different places in their relationships.
True. You've got young, fiery love on one hand, and then this mature, established, what's the word?
Complicated.
Yeah, complicated. But both dealing with that same tension between reason and passion. And speaking of tension, the tragic inevitability of Romeo and Juliet. From the very beginning, we know how it's going to end.
That dramatic irony, knowing their fate right from the start, it adds so much depth to the story.
Yeah, and makes their love even more powerful because you know it can't last.
Exactly. It sets the stage for something truly special. And of course, we can't talk about Romeo and Juliet without mentioning that iconic balcony scene. The one with Juliet's famous line, "My bounty is as boundless as the sea."
Chills. Every single time.
Seriously. Such a powerful declaration of love. And the lecture talks about how Shakespeare captures that feeling of transcendental love that goes beyond the physical world.
So, like, how does he do it?
There's this one example that really stands out. Romeo starts to swear his love by the moon, but Juliet stops him.
What did she say?
She says, "Oh, swear not by the moon, the inconstant moon, that monthly changes in her circled orb."
So she's basically saying, don't compare my love to something as fickle as the moon.
She's pushing him toward a deeper, more constant expression of love.
Interesting. So we've got this young, passionate love with Romeo and Juliet. But what about Antony and Cleopatra? Their love is definitely more mature.
Oh, for sure. It's important to remember that Shakespeare was adapting a historical story here, shaping how we view Cleopatra even today.
So true.
And the way he structures the play is fascinating. It's super fast-paced, jumping between different locations and characters all the time.
It's like he's mirroring the intensity of their relationship.
Exactly. Plus, remember, Antony isn't just some lovesick guy. He's a Roman leader. He's got responsibilities.
Talk about an internal conflict.
And the lecture really digs into that, exploring how Antony struggles to reconcile his passionate love for Cleopatra with his duties to Rome. There's also this recurring theme of his emasculation because of his love for her.
Emasculation. Wow, that's strong.
It is. But in this context, it refers to this perceived loss of power and authority that Antony experiences, how his Roman contemporaries see his love for Cleopatra as a weakness.
So it's not that Cleopatra is literally taking away his power, but it's how their relationship is perceived, how it impacts his image as a leader.
Exactly. It really challenges those traditional ideas about power and masculinity. And then there's this amazing description of Cleopatra on the Nile. It's from Enobarbus, one of Antony's officers, and he describes her with such awe. He talks about her beauty, her majesty, her captivating presence.
Wow, it sounds like Shakespeare really wants us to see Cleopatra's power.
He does, and Antony, his response to all of this is basically, let Rome and Tiber melt.
He's willing to let it all go for her.
It seems that way. It shows just how powerfully love can shift our priorities, make everything else seem insignificant.
It's intense.
Yeah.
To think that love can make you turn your back on everything you know.
But that brings us back to something we touched on earlier. Why are we still so drawn to these tragic love stories centuries later? Someone asked why these stories still resonate with us today. And the expert's answer was really interesting. They said it's because we often lack the words to express these really profound emotions.
I see what they mean. Like, how do you put those big, messy feelings into words?
Exactly. And that's where writers like Shakespeare come in. They give us the language, the tools to understand and express those complicated emotions.
So it's like he's giving voice to these universal experiences, the things we all feel but might struggle to articulate on our own.
Absolutely, and it's that universality that's so key. The lecture even talks about how these plays tap into something that goes beyond time and culture, that sense of shared humanity. They even use this phrase, a glimpse of the numinous.
A glimpse of the numinous.
It refers to that feeling of encountering something sacred or awe-inspiring, something
Right.
that transcends our everyday understanding.
So it's like Shakespeare's tragedies give us a glimpse into something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. There was another audience question I think you'll appreciate. It was about Shakespeare's portrayal of women.
Yeah, Shakespeare's female characters are definitely something special. Think about Juliet, Cleopatra, Lady Macbeth. They're powerful. They're complex. They drive the action.
And the lecture pointed out how Shakespeare really pushes back against that whole virgin whore thing that was so common back then. His women are multifaceted, they make their own choices, they have agency.
It's like he was way ahead of his time in that regard. But it makes you wonder, do you think he was deliberately trying to idealize women? Or was he just really insightful about human nature in general?
That's a great question, and the lecture leaves it open to interpretation. It's possible that Shakespeare, with his incredible understanding of human behavior, saw women as these complex beings worthy of being portrayed in all their depth and contradiction.
Not just fitting them into these narrow boxes.
Exactly. And that brings us back to this bigger question of why these plays still speak to us today.
Okay, so, big picture. Why should we care about Shakespeare's take on love all these years later?
Well, I think Shakespeare reminds us that love is this powerful, transformative force. It can bring immense joy, incredible fulfillment, but it can also lead to pain and destruction. And those are universal themes that connect us across time and culture.
Totally. It's like he's holding up a mirror to human nature, showing us both the beauty and the ugliness of love. And he does it all with this incredible language, this poetry.
It's true, his language is unparalleled. And that enduring power of his work leads us to the final takeaway from the lecture. It all comes back to this idea that Shakespeare's take on love, with all its complications and contradictions, it just resonates with audiences. It speaks to something deep within us.
Yeah, he really captures the power of love, both the good and the bad, the exhilarating and the destructive.
It's a good reminder, right? Love is this powerful force that shapes our lives, our decisions. It shapes who we are, who we become. Okay, imagine you are a playwright right here, right now, in the 21st century, and you've been given the task of writing a modern-day love tragedy. What themes would you explore? What kinds of conflicts would drive your story? And how would you use language to capture what love feels like in our digital age?
Makes you think about how those classic Shakespearean themes might play out in our world today. Think about it. We've got social media, dating apps, online personas. There's a whole different landscape for love and heartbreak.
Exactly. It's a whole new set of challenges and possibilities. Maybe your modern tragedy would explore that tension, right? The tension between our digital lives and that desire for real connection. Or maybe it would dive into the conflict between societal expectations around love and just that basic human need to be happy.
Man, that's heavy stuff. But totally relatable. It's almost like Shakespeare could have written about these things if he were alive today. And the language. Just imagine all the ways you could use modern language to tell that tragic love story, emojis, internet slang, text messages. The possibilities are endless.
It's like Shakespeare meets the digital age. Who knows, maybe one of our listeners will be inspired to take on the challenge.
Go forth and create, listeners. And if you're feeling inspired to explore more, don't forget to check out all the plays, poems, and critical works we've mentioned.